Okay, here we go. Now, I think we've got something coming up right now which you wouldn't have expected to see at your traditional mining conference, but I'm sure it's going to be very, very interesting. And so may I have great pleasure in introducing Katarina Lockinger, Head of Corporate Communications with DGWA itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for everyone who's been enabling this amazing forum and for the great talks so far. Mining affects biodiversity on multiple scales, and it can pose a serious threat, hazard, but it can also prevent biodiversity loss. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, alongside the strategic plan from the Convention for Biological Diversity, for example, lay out an ambitious conservation agenda. And in this panel, we're going to discuss the role of mining in protecting and enhancing biodiversity. So I'm delighted to introduce my panel here. To my left, it's Dr. Murray Hitzman, Director of the Science Foundation Ireland Research Centre in Applied Geosciences, ICRAG. Mr. Khalid Al-Sharif, Vice President of Strategy and Planning at Ma'aden, the largest multi-commodity mining and metals company in the Middle East. And last but not least, Mr. Hassan Al-Ghani, Operation Development Manager at Saudi Comedat, one of the leading contractors for open pit mining in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Mary, let's dive right in. Considering the push to clean energy transition, how do you see the impact on communities and the environment evolving from future mining activities playing out on a global level?
Thank you, Catherine. The impact is going to be variable. And it's going to be variable both for communities and the environment, depending on the mining project. But for the right mining projects, the ones we actually really want to go forward with, they need to have net, very positive impacts in both those areas. So in terms of communities, the sort of impacts that people have talked about already today in multiple forums, increasing things like education, skills, economic opportunities, obviously. One that actually came up in an earlier panel today is leaving infrastructure behind after a mining project. For instance, now thinking about leaving renewable energy technology. So a community has energy going forward that it didn't have before. In terms of the environment, again, needing to lead the environment a net positive. And that may be in ways, like we're talking about in this panel, of increasing the biodiversity in a mining area or returning biodiversity that had been eradicated or impacted by previous populations being there before.
Thank you very much. Khalid, which commitments can a mining operator make to be seen as a welcome neighbors in the areas where you operate?
Thank you for the question. I would like to start really by the quote or quoting something from the opening session today that His Excellency, the Prime Minister or the Minister Bender mentioned and highlights. Mining could be, and somehow that's risking the environments, and somehow if it's not responsible mining. But on the other hand, mining is the solution really to save the environment in terms of providing the right metals and minerals to build the decarbonization plant, solar panels, and. So mining and somehow really is a right place to utilize as a vehicle to build and maximize the environment in the coming futures. I think that going back to your question, I think the commitment that the mining need to do is to make sure that they are not only a welcoming neighbor, they are engaging really the neighbors. They are decision maker when it's come to their place. And then usually, as you know, that mining usually are in remote area, disconnected area, less modernized area. So I think the commitment should be is engaging the commitment in their decision and providing the support whenever that is possible.
Sure, maybe you can give us also a bit of an example of what Ma'aden
Yeah, Ma'aden, we have been in several places in the North region, for example. The result of the engagement of the neighbor that resulted in building several schools, biotechnical college, where we are providing and preparing the future miners with the right responsibility. And then one of our also operations that we provided so many incentivize and promote, even providing the way that so that the local, the females, that they can work in gold and then so many others and make jewelries. So it's out of our operation exactly, but it's nearby and then so many people that involved as an outcome of our operation.
Great. Hassan, how can mining benefit the local community where you operate?
Actually, in Saudi Kumidat, the local community for us, it is one of the priority. Because we believe that for any mining succeed, supposed to be supported by the local community. And then in our objective, we have dealing with the local community as a partner to us. And he's worked with us since we start. So because of that, we are signing the contract with the Saudi Mining Polytechnic in the North region to train the people from the local community, and this local community at the end, he will work with us in the mining. So, and recently I am very proud about that one. We are the first mining company hiring the ladies and work in the mining field. So the local community, we believe it is the main source for the human people in the mining. So this it will add value to us as well as add value to the local people. This is from the human resource and the use of the local community. The other thing or other part, it is the supplier. The supplier of our spare part, normally in the mining, most of the supplier, it is from outside. We import the spare part. In last few years, we replaced many of the spare part by the local supplier, which add value to him also and the income for the local supplier in Saudi. And it helps us to get our spare part early as soon as we want that one.
Great. Maybe let's go back to you, Murray. It has been said that geodiversity is required for biodiversity. Can you explain this concept a little bit and why is it important for the mining sector?
Sure, I can. So it's a concept really from the ecologists, and it makes sense. It's actually what we've been talking about at this conference, that our society, our civilization depends on metals. That's what this whole conference is about. So if you think about any biological community, that's what we are, right? They depend on what's coming from the earth. So geodiversity, what's in the earth, actually determines what kind of biological activity can exist. This conference is just a sort of super example of that. But it's really important to get that across educationally to ourselves as an industry, to understand why, what we're doing with the earth actually impacts all the biological activity and why we need to try and protect that, but also society as general, because it, again, shows sort of the systems thinking we heard about from the panel before, understanding how things are circular and how they're interconnected. So geodiversity, the earth, actually is the foundation of all the life on top of the earth.
Khalid, what initiatives can mine operators take to protect the geodiversity, protect the environment, decarbonize operations?
I think there are so many steps really to be taken, but I think one of the most important things is the efficient use of the energy and then maximize the utilization of the renewable energy, renewable water, that for their processes. These are the heart for any operation in the mine. And then if we manage to utilize them in a more responsible way, that will help definitely. Ma'aden, for example, we have just finished construction, one of the new operations, and it's become one of the design criteria that to use the solar in our operation. and then that will be on as we build mines. We will utilize the solar in our operation. Water. We have, I think, built so many examples in utilizing the recycled water in our operation. So, for example, in the past 3 years, the average almost of our utilized water or used water in our operation, in the gold, for example, we have exceeded 65% of our gold produced that's coming from utilized water. We have built more than 1,000 kilometers of pipes to provide our operation, neither to the gold operation or to the north operation in the phosphate company with the recycled water. And we are aiming in the phosphate to jump from 50% of depending on water or groundwater to 100% of used water or recycled water. Similarly, in the used water, we are working with so many government authority that to maximize really the use of the treated water in our operation, which is, I think, these are the two main really part. In addition to this, of course, mine always knows as a waste, and there is a waste rock, waste material. I think the main point here is to design this waste material in the proper way, in the right way, as per the best regularity or best, let's say, policies to keep this waste safe and protected throughout the time.
Sometimes it's not possible to make everything as perfect as Marden is doing that, and conflict might also arise. Hassan, maybe you could say how mining operators can deal with social and environmental conflict, and how they can minimize it.
Actually, when we mention environmental or the mining, when we mention to anyone, the first thing he will thought or he will think it is the mining, it is disturbing the environmental in the area. But where I am working, the phosphate mining, we put the environmental thing, it is priority for us. So this is why we are dealing with the environmental very careful in that area. We have our own weather station which can read daily and hourly the reading of the pollution in the weather. Other thing, the recycling or disposal of the used tire, because we know there are many things came out from the mining. The oil usage, it is a lot, it is a huge number. And the tire also, same thing. So in this thing, we are dealing with the authorized contract to dispose of the tire and recycle also the used oil in the mining. Addition to that one, we are using the water treatment to recycle the water what we use, and we have plan also to build our own sewage water recycling, to reuse the sewage water for spraying the water in the mine. We use also the water which came out from the process plant in Ma'aden to use it as a separation system inside of the mining, which will lead and it will help us to have control of the dust and the dust in the mining. So this is how we are dealing in the environmental to make, if we want to link it to the first question, to make the local community happy and he don't have that threat about the mining, it will affect his health or it will affect the environmental. Also in the open pit, we use the in-pit dumping, which means the same material what we are extracting, we dump it inside of the pit, which will make more control in the dust in the local area or in the town around the mining. And this is it help him, and also it help us to make the local community and the people around happy from the mining.
That's great, hearing so many great examples from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But Murray, maybe you can also tell us a bit more about some examples of mining projects where biodiversity has explicitly been addressed and successful on a global level?
Yeah, there's actually a number, and I'll just mention three fairly briefly. One is from Ireland, where I'm from, and mine there, Galmoy, which closed several years ago. Actually, its tailings facility was engineered to be a wetlands, which has now been demonstrated by a number of nature groups in the country to actually have some of the greatest biodiversity in Ireland. So pretty amazing to take a manufactured, what was a tailings facility, and make it a center of biodiversity. I also do a lot of work in southern Africa, and there I'd just like to call out one company in particular, First Quantum. They actually take their mining sites in both Zambia and previously in DRC, and they've actually turned them into biodiversity oases. They have reintroduced animals that were completely hunted out before, and so now the animals are back on the mine site, and it looks like the way we all think Africa should look. The final one is probably the biggest, and that's the Carajás mining district in Brazil. If you go to Google and go to eastern Brazil, most of it you can see there's no forest left. But there's a big square, and that big huge square, which is several hundred kilometers, is actually the Carajás mining reserve, which the government put in place back when it was all forest. It's now the only part of the Brazilian Amazon that still is forested in that part of Brazil. So they have definitely preserved an incredibly important piece of biodiversity and the environment.
That's great. Maybe some more examples of what Marden is doing, not just to minimize the impact, but also to really encourage ESG principles. On the one side, you can reduce or minimize the negative impact that you have, but on the other side, I know we've been talking about some tree planting initiatives, for example.
Yeah. If you allow me, I would like to really first to comment on a very important point that's with my colleagues. What mine company could produce as a waste or a secondary waste material that could be used in somehow with someone else in utilizing that for different way of production. And then the collaboration here between us, I think, is an example that we are not only wasting, we are reusing the materials somehow in some way, which is minimize the waste, and that's definitely is encouraging the company to look to the waste as how we can reuse it again in somehow or some way. For the plantation, that's Ma'aden is committed now to plant up to 2040 more than 20 million plants, and then especially in such place like Saudi Arabia. This is very important initiative. It's not up to this. Also, we are committed for the irrigation of this plant to be recycled water. So it's not only planting and using the main water. No, we are also committed to use recycled water for this plant, and then it's scattered in so many places in KSA for really make the what we call it in KSA, so green Saudi.
Great. Hassan, any thoughts from you on how to enhance biodiversity?
Actually, to control and help the people in biodiversity in the mining, I have more concentrated in the local community actually, because we believe that as long as you make the local community happy from the mining industry, he will support you and he will succeed as you succeed also in the mining. Because one of the biggest challenge in the mining everywhere, not only in Saudi Arabia, everywhere it is the local community. If local community help you to succeed, then you will succeed also. If he's don't like the mining at all, then you will fail definitely. So local community, it is the main core of the business for the mining. He need to involve him in the mining, and he need to give him part of the mining operation to make him happy and to help him as well as helping the company, that one.
So we've heard from two companies now whose ESG policies have been built into the backbone of the company. But Murray, speaking outside of the KSA, do you think governments should be more involved, or is is it the companies themselves that should?
No, it's a partnership. It always is. So our industry is always going to be regulated. We expect that. So they have to work in partnership, and I think that's something what we can see from this meeting, what the kingdom is really trying to do, is actually bring government regulation together with industry, and then importantly with the local communities as well, another aspect, right? And the three work together to understand how do we make this work best so that everyone wins and there's essentially no losers, right? Including the biodiversity, the environment.
Yeah.
But that's important because only if the community is engaged, bought in, and happy will we be able to do that preservation.
Sure. And any final thoughts for the audience? Some actionable takeaways?
I think referring to your question and then your comments, I think, yes, the regularity is important really to put the right regulation and ensure that all the mining companies are taking the responsibility for the biodiversity to the community. But what also most important is to ensure that it is part of their DNA, because you don't want to be in a police situation. You need to be in a situation where the companies really they hold the responsibility and be responsible mining company, not toward only the community, toward the whole country, toward the nation that they are working in. Because whatever that we do today, that will be for the future. So we need to make sure that, yes, the government, they do have the right policies, the right procedures, the right regulation, but on the other hand, we need to work with the company hand to hand to ensure that this policies, procedure is part of their DNA, and then they spread that to the other, and then so on.
Sure. Hassan, any final thoughts from your side?
Again?
Any final thoughts from your side?
It is the final thing I want to say. It is involve the local community, help the environmental. The mining, it's not mean it is something it coming to destroy the earth. It is also it's help to generate new thing for the new generation. Without mining, we will not have the green energy. Without mining, we will not have new product or new item establish and make. So mining, it is part of the green energy, and it's help the people. It is not destroying the life or destroying the earth.
Sure, if it's not grown, it's mined. Murray, any thoughts from you?
Final thoughts would just be biodiversity may seem an odd concept with mining. I can imagine a lot of people coming here thinking, what is this about? But it really shouldn't be. It really should be something that we should think about from day one. And I think a lot of companies have without using the word biodiversity, and governments. But I think it'll become much more explicit going forward. And I think that's probably a good thing and something we should embrace.
You said mining operators are actually very big landowners as
Absolutely.
well.
Yep.
So thank you so much for participating in this panel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Excellent panel there. What a wonderful story there about 20 million trees being planted in Saudi and also being watered by recycled. Thank you. Please, one more round of applause for our panel today. Thank you. And if I could ask you to leave the stage, and can I call on our next panel speakers to head up the back here and get yourself kitted up to get on stage. We'll have a short break while all this happens, and thank you very much.